Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello. Okay. Hi, Tyler. Okay. Hello, everybody. How are you today? Hope you guys are good. Good. Nice. Thank you so much. You could respond in the chat. Hi, everybody. You are welcome. You are welcome. Okay.
Need to turn in?
Yep. How are you?
Job.
Yeah, you. Great.
So
Amazing.
that's enough of you, I
Nice.
think. No, that's really enough.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you today? So just a quick one. My name is Sean. I'm your course instructor, and it's good to meet everybody once again. Now online. Getting to see your face will be good, but if you can't see your face, well, I understand. Okay. So we're just gonna wait for maybe 2 more minutes for us to have a couple of more people. And we're also gonna be having our guest lecturer, a guest speaker here very soon. So just to let you know that this session is recorded. And I'm also just going to be taking notes of those who attended, just to make sure that in case we want to put some attendance on it, that will be easy for us. Okay, I hope you're all fine with the recording. Just give me a thumbs up if you're good with the recording, as well we could use it to teach other students. Those who are not available, thank you very much, Emily. Thank you very much, AB. Thank you very much, Duncan. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, Morgan. Thank you, Ela. Thank you, Colton. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Yan. I appreciate Shelly. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Corbin. Yeah. Thank you so much. So let me try and get something before we have our session started. So this is Global Entrepreneurship Week. And Global Entrepreneurship simply is that week where we all just talk about entrepreneurship from all over the world. And we have got several people, notable speakers from all over the world championing entrepreneurship. And one of those people who champion entrepreneurship, like many of us know all over the world, is Richard Branson. So I'm going to show a video right now for us to see on what Richard Branson says about Global Entrepreneurship Week, which this is one of the things we're also using to also talk about it. And this also definitely falls under what you guys are going to be exploring in this unit. So where is my video?
Well, hello everybody. This Global Entrepreneurship Week, I wanted to take a moment to share a message of hope and encouragement. Entrepreneurs are the dreamers, the doers and risk takers that have the opportunity to transform society for the better. I didn't even know that I was an entrepreneur when I started Virgin. The word wasn't really used back then. I was a young man with big dreams of creating businesses that solved problems and helped improve people's lives. When I first learned the word, I had to ask how to pronounce it. French was never my strong point. Everyone has the potential to become an entrepreneur and to create positive change in their communities. I'm proud to support the Global Entrepreneurship Network, a charity with a mission to make it possible for anyone, anywhere, to start or scale a business. They want to unearth a new generation of entrepreneurs to help figure out better ways of doing things, to create jobs and new opportunities in the wake of the pandemic. So if you've ever wanted to start a business, head over to the Global Entrepreneurship Network and check out all the great resources they have available. Cheers.
Okay, all right. So that's a very short greeting and video from the renowned global entrepreneur himself, Richard Branson. And yep, I mean, he needs no further introduction. I mean, this is one of the programs that we're looking at this week. And I working as well, being a faculty staff at UVIC. I just felt, let's bring some fresh thoughts and ideas, and now we all can benefit from this week. And I've got here with me someone I respect so much, who was in the last 3 years I've worked with, both locally here in Canada and also globally. Very first time I met, we had a session in Toronto, and just before the G20 Young Entrepreneurship Alliance conference in Summit in Germany. She works with Futurpreneur. Futurpreneur is one organization, I mean, the most reputable in Canada, championing youth entrepreneurship. And I'm going to be leaving her right now to talk to us more about what she's doing, introduce herself, and I'm sure that you all are going to learn from her experience, from what she's also got to offer. And please feel free to ask questions. She's so willing to answer all of your questions. She loves students, and I mean, she's just amazing. So I'll hand over the mic and the space to Mégane. Mégane, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. And I apologize for being slightly late. My meeting ran a little long, but what a warm welcome. Thank you so much. So I'm so glad to be speaking with all of you. I mean, I was a student myself in the past. And so as Shannon said, I really love to share a bit more about, the work that we do at Futurpreneur and the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance, but also meaningful ways in which each and every one of us can have a leadership role. And that's in multilateral spaces, global, local, national, what have you. But we all have opportunities to elevate a lot of the priorities that we have as human beings and as young entrepreneurs too, right? So my role at Futurpreneur is very specific to government relations, but also partnership development with the ecosystem nationally, and also sometimes corporate relations as well. And all of that is really to lobby and elevate a lot of the work that we do at Futurpreneur and ensuring that we can continue to do the work that we do. So that entails a lot of lobbying for fundraising, advocating for some of the barriers that a lot of young entrepreneurs face in accessing financing, accessing resources, and overall just looking at economic prosperity in Canada and how can we ensure that no one is left behind, especially young entrepreneurs who will become the next generation of business owners and also contribute to that prosperity, right? So that's for the Futurpreneur side. And then for the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance, which is where I had the pleasure to meet Sean at the very beginning, it's an association of other organizations such as Futurpreneur, and Futurpreneur is the official Canadian representative at that G20 engagement group. So I don't know if many of you are familiar, but the G20, similarly to the G7 as well, has a lot of engagement organizations. So you may have heard before of the B20, which is the business engagement group of the G20, the Y20, Youth 20, the W20, Women's 20, and so on. So the G20 YEA, also known so at the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance, is really fitting that gap in between the B20 and the Y20 in looking at how small business owners or larger business owners that are in that youth space, so 18 to 39 or 40 years old, but a lot of the innovation and the responses that they can provide to some of the global challenges that exist, right? So back in 2010 is really when a lot of those organizations, such as Futurpreneur, so we're talking youth chambers of commerce, industry group with a youth arm, or sometimes even associations of professionals, how they came together to really take the hosting of the G20 by Canada at the time to organize an engagement summit on the sideline for young entrepreneurs and by young entrepreneurs. So that's a bit about the G20YA and some of the work that a lot of entrepreneurs have been involved with. And this is something that we try to provide as a balance, is that not only does this represent international trade opportunities for young entrepreneurs, right? So we're really looking at the inclusive trade space on the Canadian landscape, because as much as 95, sometimes 97% of the Canadian economy is represented by small businesses, a very small portion of that are represented on the international trade, and an even smaller portion of that represent the diversity and breadth of what being a Canadian means. So we're really in that space to open those doors and windows to enhance opportunities. And so Sean was on the delegation to Germany in 2022 and India in 2023. We also saw each other in 24, so this year in Brazil. But the goal is really to bring 40 plus of those entrepreneurs together to ensure that they can elevate a lot of their priorities, but they can also tap into that inclusive trade network and take their business to the next level. So that's for the inclusive trade side. The other one, and that's the last one I've mentioned, probably one of the most interesting for this group, is the global advocacy and the priority setting, including the drafting and contribution to a global communique, which is a position paper that the Alliance puts together. So the young entrepreneurs of the delegations and its leaders put together to put forward at the G20 leaders level. So those will be on different themes. You'll have diversity, equity, inclusion, sustainability, climate and energy, and you also have innovation, digitization, and future of work. Those have been like the common theme that you've seen, that you may see also in other engagement groups. And so this is also a great opportunity for entrepreneurs or future entrepreneurs such as yourself to really elevate what are the things that you're seeing on the ground, what are the challenges, what are the needs in a variety of those themes, and how can you connect with one another, especially on a global scale, to find solution. And those can be social enterprises, those can be multinational businesses as well. There's many different ways in which entrepreneurs connect. And so my role in that is really to steward this delegation to success. So I've had the chance of being the Sherpa for the Canadian team for the last 5 years. So I don't know, Sean, over back to you. I don't know if that answered a bit of that introductory. I know I went into a bit of details, but.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean, that's superb. Yeah, so what Mégane just give us an overview of what she does in a nutshell. Yeah, so we're going to go straight to how can Canadian youths, students of UVIC, develop entrepreneurial leadership skills. I mean, having worked with some of the brightest entrepreneurs across Canada in the last, I mean, I can't remember right now, many years, you were part of those that selected the delegation to Saudi Arabia. After all, I think, many years, so what has been your experience and what have you seen as a unique skill set? Could be 5, could be 10, could be 2, that is common among all these entrepreneurs who are some of the brightest in Canada and have gone further to do some amazing things. And, I'm sure the students would like to know so that they might be interested in developing those skills. And if peradventure some of them are currently doing those skills, then they are encouraged to even go further, and for those, yeah, so let's start with that.
Now, that's a great question. I would say, because I think we think a lot about entrepreneurs as business owners, right? Like, I think these two terms generally will be connected, but I don't think this is the only way to be an entrepreneur. I found, very inspiring entrepreneurs who were leaders of nonprofits, right? Like, they were leaders of organization that in a traditional way, maybe not encompassing some of the business profit creation frameworks. So I would say for me, what I've seen in terms of successful entrepreneurs and those that had more of a leader quality was really that pursuit and identifying how they can provide impact in the world. One of them can be social impact. So looking at a needs in your local community to see how you can respond to that and offer, say, a service or a product. Or it could also be how you do business will impact the ways in which your community will be elevated. So if I can give an example, I have so many inspiring examples, and yours is also one of them, Sean, but I'm going to share the one that most recently was on our delegation this year. And she's an entrepreneur from Newfoundland and Labrador. She's a newcomer, actually, to Canada. And the ways in which her enterprise is a social enterprise and the quality she has as an entrepreneur is that she found a need in the working landscape and the supply of workers, say, in Newfoundland and Labrador. And she built on her experience as a newcomer. She's a lawyer by trade, but wasn't able to do her work in Canada for a variety of reasons. And then she found a way to support other newcomer women who, like her, might want to find new skills building opportunities and tap into that Canadian work experience. So her company really focuses on creating garments made in Canada in an ethical and sustainable way. Her company is called Newfoundlander, by the way, Newfoundlander, Newfoundland, but Lander at the end. And her name is Constanza and Safatle, and she really has been an inspiration. And the ways in which she had this leadership quality was even at the summit that we had in Brazil, in Goiânia, there was an opportunity to discuss what a social enterprise is and why it's important right now to have social elements to a business or an approach that integrates the social impact in your business model, or also in the ways in which that you count what your profit and impact is. And so she represented Canada, but she was a newcomer to Canada, and she was able to connect with other entrepreneurs, including, let's say, C-suite multinational representative on stage, who are just starting to dab into what, say, sustainable impact investment means. What does it mean for their company? There's a lot of awareness raising that's still happening. But the beauty and the quality that she had as a leader is that, as small as she may have been at the time, because now she's in different funding rounds, but as small as she was at the time, she had a story to tell, and she stayed her authentic self and found ways to elevate that. Her company, which is an enterprise, it's not a nonprofit, found a niche and a need in the community that will in return provide profit not only for the community, but also be an inspiration for the way that businesses do their operation or even hire or elevate some of their workers in Canada. So that's a very specific example, but that's one that I wanted to mention because it's a very recent one. The other one I can say in the sustainability space is a friend of mine, Nina Lentinga, and her company and organization, Nets for Net Zero. And she's a very interesting example because she actually started a few companies before, I think, another company, which was more of a products-based company. But her organization focuses on ocean waste. So the garbage that you find in the ocean. And so she started really from a perspective of building partnership and relationship with other organizations and understanding how the Canadian context, because, you know, as you may know, we are not foreign to ocean waste and garbage collection as well, and the massive pollution that our water sources are currently under. But she participated in the Indian delegation, so the delegation to India in 2023, and was actually able to connect with workers, so fishermen in India, to find a way to elevate some of their challenges. So in this case, those fishermen ended up just fishing plastic. So they couldn't necessarily make a living out of fishing fish. But she found a way to connect with a local organization that could help her tap into this workforce, really, in India, to find ways to bring back ocean waste on land and then work with the local organization to take it back and try to recycle that plastic into new elements, so new material as well. So this is another example I thought I'd share because she taps into social impact, of course, but it's her openness to dialogue and understand context in different areas of the world and her ability to connect globally that has pushed her business even further. And so hence how I think being a leader in entrepreneurship is also this capacity to connect with one another and to also realize that you don't know everything, right? And that you're very much intertwined within your own authentic experience that brings a lot, but you shouldn't be scared or think that if you show that you have some weaknesses in terms of knowledge or even in the ways that you do business, that this wouldn't bring you opportunities in the future, because it will. So those are two examples of two amazing entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, that have represented Canada on the delegation. And I should mention also that Nina was one of our task force leads. So an entrepreneur who was a leader in the space herself to lead those consultations with the other delegates, the other entrepreneurs on the delegation, to discuss the priorities for sustainability, climate and energy. So they really led the charges in terms of the Canadian priorities as part of this global conversation with the other organization, and really put the data transparency on the map, which was something that other entrepreneurs wanted to focus on as well. Plastic, recycling plastic, even just raising awareness about waste in general. But also the ways in which some existing legislation or regulation might hinder the capacity and opportunities that other young entrepreneurs may have. So for example, the green procurement contracts that have been enabled in the country, and the ways in which that those focus on $1 million plus companies, and how this might not tap into the great potential that young entrepreneurs and their companies have. So that's another way that she's showcased leadership as well. So
thank you so much, Mégane. So I just shared a video right now on the link of the amazing job Nina is doing. That's one of our interviews. And we're getting more people coming in. So I'd like to ask this question. Who is an entrepreneur? And how does an entrepreneur differs from a business owner? Because sometimes people think, oh, if you own a business, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you made some mention, that you might actually be doing having some social work and all that. That makes you an entrepreneur. But now, give us a professional definition or an explanation of who an entrepreneur is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're putting me in a tough spot. Well, and I think this really ties back into the theme of the Global Entrepreneurship Week this year, right? Like that entrepreneurship really is for everyone. So you're right in the sense that being an entrepreneur is not necessarily being the founder and CEO of a company, right? It could be the ways in which that you elevate projects, that you create connection, that you create impact also within your community or even your work, right? We talk a lot about being an intrapreneur. This is a term that has become more and more popular over the last few years. There are other ways to be an entrepreneur than being a business owner. So, for example, something that we've been focusing on a lot at Futurpreneur is the concept of part-time entrepreneurship. So being a side hustler. And I think this is great in the sense that a person could continue to elevate a professional career in a field that they're passionate about while also exploring opportunities of business ownership and tying the two together in the ways in which that they add value to themselves, their profession, or even the ecosystem, right? So that's another way that we've seen, and it's definitely a reflection of the context in which a lot of young people, and I can speak to young people here, but have had is that entrepreneurship typically has not been available. Business ownership, more specifically within the entrepreneurship space, has not been accessible to everyone. And so one way in which Futurpreneur at least is responding to that is what are some of those needs and challenges that people have faced in order to grasp entrepreneurship. And I think a lot of the time it's looking at bettering one's skills. So having skills in, say, partnership development, in business literacy, financial literacy as well, understanding where you are in that stream will make you an entrepreneur at the end of the day because you'll be able to pursue those fields as well, right? That's more on the business ownership side, right, Sean? But I think on the other end of the spectrum, just the capacity to elevate a lot of your projects and a lot of your goals in that macro sphere, because I think a lot of time we fall into some of the nitty-gritty part of work, or we think, maybe this is not the way that I will have an impact into this world. But if you take on that entrepreneurial approach, you'll find innovative ways to address some of the issues or problems that you have. So to me, being an entrepreneur, yes, there's the business element, but you can definitely be an entrepreneur in your own right in the ways in which you're going to reach out to people, that you're going to bring in people together, and the ways that you're going to address projects or even initiatives in general. Being an entrepreneur means that you are a leader in your own right, but you're also entertaining, the elevation of the others around you as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mégane. I really appreciate that insight. So, if I would like to add, just everything, Mégane said, just if I would like to put it just in one phrase, an entrepreneur is someone who solves problems, right? And probably now let me bring from my own academic, theorem teaching. I would say a business person is a person who has crafted a business model, that makes this solution available to everybody. An entrepreneur is, focused more on solving the problem by creating solutions, and then now creates, and then it would now he may decide to go further, he or she may decide to go further to developing business model that replicates, those solutions to be delivered to many other people. Okay, please feel free to ask your questions on the chat. Just feel free to drop your questions. I'm going to be reading those questions. One question I believe many of the students here as well want to learn is, hey, Mégane is doing a lot with Futurpreneur, and especially with the G20 YEA. How can I one day represent Canada at the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance Summit? I'm sure I'm asking this question for virtually all of them. They like to know. I mean, it's a good thing to do, right? To be
Yeah.
a young entrepreneur, a young business owner. I mean, everyone is an entrepreneur. Every one of us, we're all entrepreneurs, just like a simple thing for this year. So how can, hey, I be representing Canada someday, somewhere, probably in Japan at a conference, what does it take?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so in order to be a part of the Canadian delegation for the G20 YA, Futurpreneur really looks at the business or nonprofit owners or founders, but you could very much be also in, say, the C-suite or in a leadership position as part of the organization as well, because as we said, being an entrepreneur is not just being a business owner, but the organization or company that you represent either has to be in a progression of growth. So looking at what would potentially the market in which the G20 YEA summit take place in, what would that bring to the growth of your organization or your business, or the connections and relationship that this would bring as a result. And on the other side is based on the themes of the summit, which a lot of time have been around similar themes than GEW, the fact that entrepreneurship is for everyone, climate, so people, planet, profit, like those kind of frameworks. And what can you bring to the conversation, and how can you elevate? Perhaps it's the focus that your company or organization has had. So, for example, we've had entrepreneurs focus on a variety of issues. The latest one that I thought was very interesting and fairly new was the focus, for example, on mental health. And how do you raise awareness on the needs of mental health, not only for the entrepreneurial community and young entrepreneurs, but also what can they bring in terms of the ways in which we raise awareness on mental health with the general public, and in a reconciliatory manner, and a post-colonial way as well. So this is an example. And while this entrepreneur may have started and wasn't necessarily in that growth possession already, we do ask, that the entrepreneur identifies the ways in which they'd like to contribute to the wider global conversation. And those points, like conversations that can be found in the communiques that have been published before. As I said, they're always around similar themes, even around the themes of, we talk a lot these days about literacy on sustainable development goals at the UN. Those are very specific, but very useful frameworks to position, some of the priorities or some of the goals that you've had or impact that you've had within your organization or business as well. So in a nutshell, structurally, there is a call for application that goes out every year. So I've spoken a little bit about the qualities we're looking at, but I want to speak to perhaps some of the more structural elements. So next year is going to be in South Africa. And then each of the destinations follow the G20 agenda. So then once South Africa will be done, that's 20 summits that will have been done. So the cycle of hosting the summit will start again. Hopefully, everything goes fine with the geopolitical context of the world, and we do continue multilateral engagement, of course. I want to be a pessimist, but so then it would start again in the United States in 2026. And the cycle will continue again. Canada is actually after the United States.
Yeah.
So I don't know what stage everyone on this call is at. If you're already looking, you've launched an organization or a business, if you're really at the earlier stage and thinking about what can I add as a value to this world, or you have an idea already. But basically, I would say once you get to that phase where you're in a position where you're able to elevate a lot of those conversations forward, perhaps you're looking at internationalization, export, growth, export readiness is another thing that I haven't necessarily mentioned here, but all those elements will enable you then to apply and then participate to be a part of the delegation. So, but those are call for applications that come out every year. So I would love, if anyone is interested on the call, like I'd be happy also to walk through in more details. But also Sean, having been part of this experience and being a global ambassador as well, I think he's also a great person for you to speak to better understand some of the qualities and elements that are behind participating in the summit.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So I'm gonna ask one more question. Okay, please drop your questions. Duncan has asked a question. I'm gonna ask a question, but I want to share this slide for you to just kind of have a look at it. This is one of the slides I used while I was teaching, and I think this just kind of captures everything you were talking about. But this has like a little bit of academic tone to it since, we have students here. It says the word entrepreneur originates from the French verb entreprendre, which means to do something, and I'm sure every one of us is doing something, to undertake, and then the next day says an entrepreneur as a problem solver is someone who is actively, looking for challenges, the challenges we all face, and how can you identify, these problems? Mégane talked about mental health issues. That's a problem. She talked about Nina Latinga working on problems in this, in the ocean industry. So those are problems. So part of the reason why we're having this session is to also make every one of us, the students also start thinking about your local community. Where are you? And then we're looking at those problems, that you can see, and how can you find ways to develop ideas, solutions, you test them, you create a feasibility study on how this can be solved, those problems can be solved. And I like and I wrote a more academic, by the 16th century, people started talking about an entrepreneur as someone who undertakes a business venture. So you could see that from my lecture notes in January, someone who undertakes a business venture, so by business now you're not trying to bring those solutions to the outside world. But I've got this image here, which Mégane talked about as well, the United Nations SDG goals. This gives us a framework, just like she said, to look at how the United Nations together with World Bank actually did this together. How, they've looked at the 17 areas where we can actually look at problems. And I believe every one of us can find a solution or at least contribute to some discussions in each of these areas, 17 of them. And I'd like to talk about, my own area, which is the climate action with my business. And then that was me at the United Nations building 2023. And we talked about 4 key challenges. This is just kind of, spur us and then give us some, appetizer into start thinking about how you can make real world impacts. And I'm going to ask this question now, probably the last one, to Mégane. Mégane works with Futurpreneur, making real impacts in Canada. It's a company, it's an organization with diversity, helping innovative companies all across Canada, and they have an effective team, which Mégane is one of them. Can you talk about the programs Futurpreneur, can benefit students? I believe, our students are quite young. Some of them are thinking about ideas to solve problems. Some of them are actually in Europe right now. Some are in Asia. Some are in North America. Some are in probably Africa, Australia, on internship. So how can Futurpreneur help these young entrepreneurs? And when I mean entrepreneurs now, it's people now who have ideas or looking at problems they are seeing, and now they can create solutions.
Yes, of course. So this is interesting because Futurpreneur can be there both at the entrepreneurial earlier stage, but also when it comes to taking that 16th century definition right to the business owner or business venture side. So in a nutshell, what Futurpreneur does is that it supports young entrepreneurs between 18 to 39 who are looking to launch a business. So they do that by focusing on accessible financing, because let's be honest, in this day and age, it's very difficult for younger people to, for example, go to a traditional lending institution, and I'm speaking in the Canadian context here, to have access to this financing, because a lot of time young people won't necessarily have either the collaterals to access funding for business launch, or they also won't have the business background or the business results since they're at that early stage, they're just starting. So Futurpreneur provides a bit of that relief in the sense that it provides non-collateral loan financing of up to $75,000 for an entrepreneur to be able to start. But it does that in a very robust way, in that once an entrepreneur is interested to apply to the Futurpreneur financing, it will look at a robust business plan. So you have to be literate in the sense that you have to understand how your solution or how your service can be framed into a way that would provide business benefits in the long run. They're going to be looking at your cash flow projections as well. And then, of course, looking at understanding how your credit as an individual, and that's, again, in the Canadian context, how credit is a healthy thing and how you can definitely tap into new opportunities if you understand how even lending opportunities can elevate your business to the next level. So that's one way in which Futurpreneur can support. And as you said, Sean, it does that looking at the fact that not everyone in the country or in the world has had access to financing the same way. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is an approach that is key in how Futurpreneur does business. So Futurpreneur also has programs that are specific to Black entrepreneurs, and all of the team members will be from the community or will be related to the community. And similarly, for Indigenous entrepreneur, we also have a program that is dedicated to them. And the main focus really is to have, business stakeholders and persons on the ground who identify either as Indigenous or related to the Indigenous community as well. So that's one way that we address some of the ways in which an entrepreneur would want to take the next step. Mentorship is another important element, and I'm sure that this is something that you've all thought about as well. I've had mentors in my life. I've mentored some people, but mentorship will be attached to that financing in that crucial 2-year launch phase. So it's a very important framework for Futurpreneur. Now, this is all about the financing. And as I said, it goes up to $75,000. And I mentioned the business plan and the cash flow projection. A lot of young entrepreneurs might not necessarily have the knowledge or the business education that will enable them to have that robust business plan or even understand what cash flow projections are. So Futurpreneur also offers resources and education for entrepreneurs to get to that point. So there's a lot of free resource on the website, and I see, Sean, you're going through as well. There is an online business plan writer. So it's a template that you can use to start your journey in identifying in a bit more real term what that solution might look like in terms of a business venture. But There's also a lot of other resources. There's a lot of other programs. So one that I'll mention is also a new program that was launched that might be of interest to many of you. It's called My Canadian Startup. And it's a program that addresses some of the questions and some of the needs that a lot of newcomer entrepreneurs may have. So it's not just for young entrepreneurs. If you don't consider yourself young anymore, or if you're a bit above that 40-year mark, that's totally okay. We do have, of course, some resources for that. And that program specifically is for everybody. Whether you've started your business, whether you're thinking about it, as if you're an entrepreneur looking at solidifying your solution in realer term and understanding a little bit better what it takes to tap into the Canadian business landscape. How can I connect with other individuals? What are the best practices that I need to know? What are some of the legal, some of the more experts framework that I need to be aware of in order to get started? So that's another way that Futurpreneur is helping. And then, of course, I mentioned briefly the side hustle. That's a good way, a lot of time for entrepreneurs who have this solution, who have this idea, to test it out, because you don't want to start a business right away. That's okay. You can start a part-time business to test your idea and see how it goes while continuing to have the stability, for example, of a full-time job, or, for example, being a student, right? But the side hustle part is really for you to get started. And you have some resources for that, but definitely the main one being the loan. So as you can see, the $25,000 loan. And the entrepreneur that you see on the right, she's actually based in Montreal, and she started a book publishing company as a side hustle. And it's it's now thriving into a bit more of a full-time venture as well. And another example is, if you remember him, Sean, is John Pyatt, who was on our delegation in India, who actually started with weighted blankets because he wanted to tap into the issue of sleep and the fact that a lot of people couldn't. So he focused on a product at first and started his side hustle based on that. And now his company is really becoming this $1 million sleep company. He's now gone into mattress manufacturing. He manufactures everything in Canada. And he started to discuss potentially through the G20 to tap into the Chinese market, for example. So these are a very real example of how resources from Futurpreneur have helped this entrepreneur who had an idea to get started and tap into his potential. So I think I've gone through a few of the resources. I think the last one that I'll mention, I think it's an important one that we're hearing more and more, and that might be of interest, is the focus on business acquisition. So I don't know if many of you know, but there's a lot of opportunities, and I think you can find it, Sean, if you go into our programs on the website. Yeah. And then it's Owners Wanted at the bottom. Yeah. So that's another, let's say, opportunity or issue that we found in the Canadian business ecosystem is that, as it says here, 76% of Canadian business owners are going to exit in the next few years. So we're looking at baby boomers who had a successful business, they're looking to retire, or even, just people who want to look at something else into their lives. And so the idea is that while those businesses are going to close, our position is that there is a slew of young entrepreneurs, such as yourself, who have the drive and who have the idea, who have the innovative spirit to take over those existing businesses and change them from within and make them even better, right? So we want to also provide the view that entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily always have to start from scratch. You can look at ways in which that you can access or acquire an existing business. And there have been a few cases, and they've gone through Futurpreneur, where, for example, it was the employee of a company I'll use the example of how do you call that? Hair styling, the hair salon, sorry, in a community in Quebec. And she was working, she was a passionate hairstylist, but she wanted to start her own business. And she had tried starting her own business, but it wasn't a success for a variety of reasons. And so she now has taken over this existing company and is really thriving. She's really, really made it even an influencing space. She has podcasts now for entrepreneurs, it's a podcast in French. I can share the links later, Sean, if that's of interest. But that's an example of someone who had the drive and the skills in a specific sector. She may not have had the business acumen, but she was passionate and she took over this existing business. So that's an example of how being an entrepreneur has so many multiple facets. And this is within, of course, the business venture side. And this is what I can speak to, of course, for Futurpreneur. And of course, the other one being the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance, which is a bit more on that advocacy piece, a bit more of the representation of some of those priorities and those ideas, right? And those solutions that Sean mentioned. So being entrepreneurial in the ways in which we see the world and want to change it. So I don't know if there are any questions.
That's me over there in Germany. That's me.
Yes.
Right.
You're right there.
Right. So let's throw the window open for our students. So we've got one question regarding mental health and entrepreneurship. Can you tell us about getting into that particular field? Duncan is asking.
Yeah, that's a good question, and perhaps not the one I'm the most equipped, right, to respond to. What I can tell you though is I've seen many successful examples, and that's definitely a field that we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs invest their ideas and their time in. So the interesting thing with mental health is that it's very multifaceted. So you could look at, it could be more on the accompaniment side. So you want to accompany individuals specifically. So the entrepreneur that I mentioned earlier, she has a clinic. So really looking at supporting individuals in their mental health journey. But she also has projects that look at tapping into the northern side of Canada and accompanying and really understanding some of the more Indigenous-led approaches to mental health and integrating that into her practice. She also has a podcast, for example, talking about mental health. So there's many different ways in which you can, I feel, tap into that field or even elevate some of the challenges that exist, right? Especially when it comes to mental health care, provider crisis, we could say sometimes in Canada. That's a wider healthcare providing space as well in Canada. But definitely something that I would say is that there are very multiple ways. I'll give one more example, and I hope this somehow gives insight to your question, Duncan. But there's an entrepreneur, and he was on our delegation in 2022. If you remember, Sean, he was on one of the pitch competitors who pitched for Canada with the other delegations. And his company, so it's called a RUH app, so RUH. And it is a company that is a tech company, but that allies worldviews that are based in the Islam faith to better support the needs of Muslim clients and Muslim youth particularly. So looking at a well-being mental health app that would be based on the Quran, that would be based on a lot of the frameworks that in a Western Christian-based perspective might not be as relevant or might not be as useful for those. And so he's really found a growing market, a growing need to elevate his skills in the tech sphere, for example, but framing that and packaging that into a user experience and an app and a business that can really be elevated in a wide variety of markets. So that's another way that you can tap into mental health, right? Like this is an example. And I can put yeah, there you go. So Omar Khan was on our delegation in 2022, and has been doing a few funding rounds if I remember correctly. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Duncan. Not being a mental health specialist or expert, I can only speak to the amazing examples I've seen. But yeah, okay, great. Great.
Okay, yeah. Any other questions? I mean, just to add to that, Omar went ahead to get for a pitch competition in, I think, Saudi Arabia, and he won 50,000 US dollars.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got
Very
another
successful.
question. It says, I've been looking into Futurpreneur and I've seen a lot of resources, a mixed package of financial mentorship and overall quite a long process. I have secured the financial side of things, but I was just wondering if you knew if there was any way to
Mm,
just sign up and work alongside a mentor.
mm. That's a good question. Thanks, Harry.
That's good.
So the model that Futurpreneur has, that the mentorship is really a condition to the financing. So you would have to tap into Futurepreneur's financing in order to be paired and matched with a mentor, and that's for 2 years of your journey with Futurepreneur. Now, I understand that the financing side of things is secured on your end, but what you could do, and again, this is something we've seen before, is that you could, reach out for, say, a smaller amount of funding, and the funding can be used for a wide variety of purposes. I mean, there's a lot of different examples, but as long as it fits into your business plan, and cash flow projection, of course, you could be able to tap into that. Now, this is for Futurepreneur, but I also know that there are other resources that exist within Canada and the ecosystem that focus either solely on mentorship, but there are also resources for coaching. There's one that I'll mention, but it is in Quebec, so I don't know where you're based, Harry, but there's a great organization in Quebec, if I can remember the name. I think it's the Network Mentorat, but I will share more information with Sean. Maybe he can share with you as well. But I know for sure that there are other organizations that can also help you with finding a mentor. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, just for some context, in terms of the financing, what are the, the conditions? Do you have to, what's the percentage, interest rate, so that some guys would just get more ideas into that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll do my best to speak to it, Sean. I think if someone would want to have more detailed information, like I'd be happy to put you in touch. And Sean, you can share like my email with everybody as well afterwards, and feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to put you in touch with our business development team or entrepreneurship community team on the ground, depending on where you are in the country, so that they can really walk you through it. But what I can say is that in terms of condition, you have to be under 24 months of operation, so of launch, so significant operations or revenue. It used to be 12 months, but we were able to announce earlier this fall that there's been an extension of our eligibility criteria. And so now entrepreneurs with businesses under 24 months of operation can actually be eligible and apply to Futurepreneur's financing. So that means that, if you've sort of already registered your business, but you haven't done necessarily any sort of significant revenue or operations, that could still be into that eligibility criteria. Now, for the amount of funding, it will depend on your business plan and your projections, of course, but it can go all the way up to $75,000, and that is in matching with the BDC. So Futurpreneur is one of the only organizations that can adjudicate on behalf of BDC, and we have this special partnership with the BDC so that a certain amount of the funding will come from Futurpreneur and another side will be matched by the BDC. For the Black Entrepreneurship Startup Program, it's a little different. A higher number will come from Futurpreneur and in conversation with RBC, support with RBC, and the rest will come from the BDC. But other than that, there is also a cap on the interest rate right now. This is a decision that Futurepreneur had when interest rates were going a bit crazy earlier in 2023, but now that everything has gone a bit down. So right now, I believe the percentage is at about 8 point, how much is it now? 8.80%. Perhaps it could be a little bit less than that, but there is a cap of 9% total for the Futurepreneur portion of the loan. Some of you may think, oh, wow, that's good. Or some of you may say, oh, that's a lot. But you have to remember that the loan that Futurepreneur is able to provide is considered a lot of time more on the high risk. And so we really want to support entrepreneurs who a lot of time without the support from Futurepreneur, so accessing that fund, would not be able to tap into traditional lending institutions, right? So I'm hearing some of you already secured the financing side. It could be bootstrap. It could be that you may be able to have a business loan from an existing bank or financial institution. But Futurepreneur is really key in the aspect that it provides you additional financing, but it's a personal loan. So the other thing that Futurepreneur will look into is your credit score. Now, don't worry. Credit scores change. So you would be able to, perhaps if it's not the right time, you would be able to come back in the future. Or we also have, as I said, our team members can be able to walk you through. And we've had cases where, entrepreneurs who may not have had good credits for a variety of reasons, right? Like definitely when you're on the younger, and I'm in that bracket still, when you're on the younger side of things, it could be like an unpaid phone bills, like how has that hindered your credit score? It's an important skill to have to understand how to maintain a healthy credit score. But anyway, other than that, the Futurepreneur side of the conditionality of the funding will be also, of course, on your personal credit score. You can go into business with different individuals. So the main component here is that the entrepreneur or the business owner that has majority of the ownership, so we count that as 51%, has to be in the age range and eligible for the funding, for the financing. So you have to be between 18 and 39 years old, and you have to want to launch your business. So yeah, so those are the main elements of the funding with Futurepreneur. But as I said, some of them are very specific cases. You may have some personal questions with regards to credit score, with regards to the business plan writing, the idea, because we have an amazing team. We're over 120 people across the country at Futurepreneur, and I'm really at that partnership and government relations team. But all of our team members who are on the ground helping young entrepreneurs such as yourself to better understand the program, they're there to support. And we even have entrepreneurs in residence, so EIR as we like to call them, who can really hold your hand in supporting you to build a proper, robust business plan. The other resource that I failed to mention, but I think would be really useful for this group, is the Rock My Business series. So it's an educational series that we have at Futurepreneur. It's a 3-part webinar series. And we even have awards that entrepreneurs can apply to in order for them to start their business. So thank you, Shin. So if you participate in 3 of those sessions, one is going to focus on getting started, so your business idea, market research, etc. The second is on your business plan, so Rock My Business Plan, as we call it. And the third is going to be on your cash flow projection, so actually putting things to life. So yeah, there you go. So Rock My Business Idea, Rock My Business Plan, and Rock My Cash Flow. This is free. You can register anytime. And it's a series over the year, and we have amazing entrepreneurs in residence, such as my colleague Dominique, who are leading this webinar and accompany our entrepreneurs to get started in the best successful way.
Great. Thank you so much. So we just got one more question, and we're gonna wrap it up there. So I've added the link for Rock My Business there. So there's a question that says, on top of the training, does the Owner Wanted program also help connect buyers and sellers within similar fields of interest? If not, do you have any recommendations of where we could find potential opportunities?
Yes. So the program won't be doing matching for you, but the program does lead those educational session in partnership with organization and services that do. So I can share some of the ones that we've worked with before. I think this is on the West Coast, which I think is relevant for most people on the call. It's called Venture Connect. So we've developed a lot of our workshops with them, and I believe they have a matching service. Another great one is Village Wealth. So I'm gonna write them down in here so you can have. So Venture Connect, Village Wealth. So those two we've worked with in the past. I believe there's a third one in the English market, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll also share that we have a partnership with the Center of Business Transfers in Quebec. I don't know if any of you are based there, but it's called the CETEC. I'll also write it down here. This one is really specific to Quebec, so I don't know how many of you that would be useful for. But I would say these three generally will have probably matching services that you can tap into. There are other great resources online too, but I do think that those generally will be paid as well. But I would suggest that you start there.
Okay, any other questions for Mégane? Any other questions? Questions? Thank you very much for adding those comments. The Venture Connect and Village World. I think that's for you. That's for David. Yeah, David. Hope you got that. So any other questions? We already spent more than our time, but I believe it was very informative for every one of us. Questions. Please, before we round up, in case the name on display is not the name you have on Brightspace, could you just rename it so that I could just use that to match your name on Brightspace? Brightspace, Mégane, is what we use for our classroom online study. Yeah, so that's not for you, Mégane. Yeah. So so they get some points. I think
Of course.
My lead professor wants to give some points, for attending the class. So yeah, so in case, just rename, but I've taken some screenshots multiple times at the beginning. Now we have 36 of us. Actually, I think someone left, but I've taken the screenshot before that. All right. If there are no questions, can you just express how you feel concerning these by thumbs up, by love, by, just express how you feel. Thank you so much. Ella, thank you so much. Love the session. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, a round of applause for you, Mégane. Oh, there's so much love. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So much thumbs up. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Jewel. Oh my goodness. Harry. Mégane, that's all for you. That's all for you, Mégane. Oh my God.
No, I'm happy I hope this was useful.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna give you, Mégane. I'm gonna give you this.
Oh wow, rockets.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. That's what I'm gonna give you.
That made my Friday night. Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you, everybody, once again for attending. Thank you for your time. And thank you, Mégane, for coming to, give us this share part of your experience. Really appreciate you. And yeah, I'm sure a number of us will be contacting you to get more
Yes.
information, possibly also have you as a mentor. I'm sure some are thinking, hey, I want to be like Mégane, so make
Right.
what's your secret, and then, yeah,
No,
just
thanks
feel
for
free.
having me. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. I really appreciate it. And anyone left on the call, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to put you in touch or even chat. So,
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for attending, students. Bye for now.
bye.
Entrepreneurship Week. Bye for now. Thank you.